So the first question, I'm working on a bag of words to produce meaningful data from large text, but I also want to shift to transformer model for text analysis. So we are actually going to talk about this in the afternoon. Okay, so yeah, so you don't worry. So we are going to cover this topic later. So can you cover the copyright issue? That's a very good question. What is the situation when full paper are uploaded into my GenAI tool like ChatGPT, Notebook LM? I'm told by the library, of course, they're very conservative, the library. So if you are using your own school's account, like, sometimes your school have your own GPT account or Notebook LM account, I would not recommend you to do that. But if they're open access paper, you can do it. But if they are not open access paper, then better not to do it with your school account. But your personal account at this moment is a more a gray area, a gray zone. So there is really no regulation about this. So if you take a look of the downloaded paper, and if your downloaded paper has, some kind of information about your school, or your downloaded paper have some information about your personal information, then you can remove it and then you can upload it. I still believe that, those publishers, they took away too much of the margin, took away too much of the money. We should not be too kind to them, I would say. So the copyright is actually not within the author, it's actually within the, the publisher, right? But if it's a book, then I would not do it. So don't upload the book there. But if, like a research paper, I think you are the one who make your own decision, right? So do you want to do it or not? And of course, you can also use another tool which is called Anything LLM, which is a substitute of Notebook LM, but you need to install it in your own computer using a local model. In this case, it's perfectly fine. It's not a problem at all. The data will not be transmitted to anywhere else. So it's all in your own computer. So you can upload anything, a book, a book, papers, even very sensitive information. You can do it there using Anything LLM. Okay?
Thank you. There's a hands up, so I'm going to allow Mike. Lalesh, would you like to speak? You should be able to talk now. Lalesh, you have hands up. So I allowed Mike. Would you like to ask questions?
I think it's an accident.
Accident.
Hand
Okay.
rise. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then let's start.
Yes, please.
Great. Okay, can you see it now? Yes. So this is
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So again, it's model parameters. Okay, so model parameter, what does it mean? So it means they are numerical weights and biases in the neural network that encode the language pattern, the facts and relationship, reasoning abilities, response preferences, etc. Okay, so we can consider a large language model as a neural network model. Okay, so there are lots of different nodes, different, connection with each other. So because of this parameter, it helps the model to produce or to predict the next word. So if you learn a little bit like linear regression, right, we know there is intercept and also the slope, right? So it's the same. The weight means is the, the slope, and the bias is the intercept. Okay, so by adjusting this, then you can create, if you have a lot of this kind of parameter, then you can build different models. So if you have a small neural network, then it's like this. It's really simple. And medium neural network, then you have more node, etc. And then you have a large complex neural network, then you have a lot of parameters. Okay, you heard of parameters a lot, like 3PM parameter, 7 billion parameters. So these are some kind of concepts to refer to the size of the model. So if you have 7 billion parameter, that means the size of the model is larger than a model with 3 billion parameter. Okay. So do you know what's this? Anyone know what's this? Let's see.
No idea.
Anyone? Okay, so that is the brain, chicken. That is the brain of a koala. Okay. So do you think koala is, so you see the brain is very smooth, right? There is no those, gap in there. So do you think koala is clever? No, it's not clever, right? It's because they don't have this kind of, their neural network is really small, okay? That's why they don't have those connections, that they don't have those knots. So in other words, okay, if your model is larger, it means you have more parameter. That means you are more smart, okay, clever, okay. So that's the model size. So it's like synapse, right? So synapse is this kind of, gap, this line in the brain. Okay, so each connection has a strength or the parameter value. So if you see a model and the model say you have 7 billion parameter, that means you have 7 billion connection strengths. So more parameters means you have more capability to learn and also to produce more accurate result. And the threshold for a model to be considered to be large is 1 billion parameter. Okay, so that's why we call it large language model, right? Because they are very large. They have so many parameters. So if you see, of course, the small one is not so clever, but they are much easier to run in your own computer. Maybe your computer is not powerful enough to run a 13 billion parameter model. Then you can choose a 3 billion parameter model. And even there's some small model now, you can even install it in your own phone, right? So there are also some super small ones. So they are not super capable of answering you like mathematical question, but they are very good to answer you some common sense question like, okay, what is the capital of France, etc. Okay. So again, I'm going to show you two new tools. So the first tool that I showed you earlier, LM Arena. So it's to see which model perform better in terms of the user evaluation. But what about you have certain exam? You ask the model to participate some exam and then see which one perform better in the exam, right? So this two tool is actually use this kind of mechanism. So again, let's go to our learning platform. Okay, so you go to the first one called LLM IQ rank. So it is very simple and straightforward. They just, use the IQ test. Probably some of you already done an IQ test, right? So it's like 100 questions. You need to answer it, etc. So they use this kind of IQ test to test different model. And you can see which model is actually the most clever one. Let's see. It's again, Claude Fable 5, right? So you can see this is a normal distribution. Most people probably get 100, average IQ 100. And then you have really clever one, which are here, outperform most of us, right? So Claude Fable, GPT-5 Pro, and then you have Q1, you have Mimo, you have Kimi. So you can see, okay, if you really want to have a smart, a very intelligent model, then you can follow this one, okay? So that's the IQ test. But of course, sometimes we don't need a super smart model, but we want it to really good at a specific domain knowledge. So in this case, we need to use another tool, which is called LLM benchmark test. So here you can see it here is another link. Let's click on it. And then you can see, okay, there are a number of different benchmark. So the first one is those multi-model index. So it's more like, okay, it's more like how to say, a more comprehensive one, okay, across different domain, okay. But of course, we want to see a specific domain, which, for example, legal. Then they invent certain benchmark for legal, like problem, legal issue, and ask the model to solve the problem, and then to see which model actually perform better. So it's like exam, it's like test, right? Okay. So you can see here which one is the best. So if you are going to use, for example, if you're from the law background and you want to use a model, of course, then you see Claude Fable 5 is the best in terms of the legal knowledge. Okay, you also have Legal Bench is another benchmark. So this one is marked academic, which means, okay, probably they collaborate with some academic partner, I don't know. And then again, you can see finance, right? So finance, they also have several benchmark tests. And then healthcare, mathematics, right? So academy, okay, good at writing a paper or not. Academy, academic multi-choice benchmark covering 14 subjects, including STEM, humanity, etc. Okay, so you can see all these benchmark. So that, of course, offer you a better, a clearer idea, overview of which model is capable of which, right? Like, let's say coding, okay? Because some of you probably want to use AI for vibe coding, then you can see the benchmark here. For vibe coding, the best one is Claude Fable 5 again, right? But we see also a rising model, which is GLM 5.2 is also very, very good. So it's open source, so you can use it for free. Okay, any question? No? So I hope these two models help you, these two tools help you to select which one that you want to use in your own research. And probably you want to try different model, but you don't want to pay for each model, right? So then in this case, you can use the several tool. The first one is Open Router. Okay, so Open Router is a kind of a platform where you can just use one single API key, and then you can access all different models. Or POE, okay, POE POE is also for example, you don't want to yeah, so now you subscribe to GPT, but you also want to use Gemini. You also want to use Claude. So in this case, instead of subscribe to GPT, you just subscribe to POE, then you can have access to all advanced models, image generation. So every month you pay like $20, then you can have access to all those models. Or if you want to use all those open source model, right? So as I demonstrated earlier, you have some open source model. How can we use it? It's for free, but how can we use it? So then LM Studio is a very, very easy, user-friendly tool, a software that you can install in your own computer and download the open source model directly from them and then use it. So I want to demonstrate to you because personally I use it a lot. So especially when you are travel on an airplane and then you don't have Wi-Fi, right? So you cannot do anything because now we have to rely on AI. So in this case, you can open your LM Studio because it doesn't require a Wi-Fi connection because everything run in your own computer. Okay, so LM Studio.
Shubin, there's a live caption again.
Yeah, I don't know how to close it here. It's really annoying. Is it here? No, it's from PowerPoint. Once I open it, and then I can never close it anymore. Where?
Yeah, live capture is done now.
Thank you.
It's done. Yes.
Now, does it work now? Yeah, it seems we don't have it anymore. Great.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
then
fine.
I can show you the LM Studio now. So this is the LM Studio. Okay. So you can see it here. This is the interface. Okay, I want to show you, once you install it, then you can come here. Okay, so you can install different model here. You have GMR4 is the one that I always mention, right, from Google. They're very, very small, but quite capable. So the majority of us, so the computer we have can use it. Okay, so of course, instead of using they have 31 billion parameter, they are very clever. But if your computer is not strong enough, then you select a less capable one, like 12 billion parameter. And it will give you, okay, here, a note here. Okay, full GPU upload possible. So that means your computer is capable. Okay, so if you see a green flag here, that means your computer is able to run it. But if I choose now here, this one is bigger, then it say, okay, partial GPU upload possible. So it's a blue flag. That means my computer may not be able to run it smoothly. Okay, so in this case, you can decide which one to go. And all the models, so we say earlier they are there, right? So Mistral from France, we have Q1, we have GPT also. GPT also have an open source model, but it's really, really bad, so don't use it. Okay, so and after you download it, then you can go to the chat. Okay, go to the chat.
Jimmy, we don't have to download the model. Or
Yeah,
do
you
we
need to
have
download it. So if you want to use it, you need to download the software
if we want
first
to use.
and then download the model. Okay. And for example, I already have several model here. So I can just use it directly. Let's see. Yeah, here I can load model. So now I already have the Gemma 4, right? So I load it. So now it's a little bit geek because it's more technical, right? So it's like, okay, I don't think most of you will really need to use it, but in case if you have really sensitive data, then you can still use it. And you can also create API yourself, and then you can integrate in your Python, in other, possibility as well. Okay. Oh no, it's here actually.
Some of us may have been using the university computer, so the Bradford, we can't.
Yeah, so do you have,
yeah,
probably if you are using a university's computer, probably you cannot download and install the
please not
software. Right.
install.
Yeah. Okay, but we can try it. I already tried several times, so I can, I can ask it, okay, can you tell me what is dehumanization? Okay, so now you can see it's processing. It's a little bit slow because everything run in your own computer. Okay, and now you can see it's thinking. So it looks really like Gemini, right? So Gemini also thinking, or like GPT Pro is always thinking. And afterwards, it give you, okay, dehumanization is a profoundly complex term that refers to the psychological process or act. So it's really good, you see? And it's 100% in your own computer. So you don't, it will always be there. Even, okay, the whole world, like no internet anymore, or all those companies they bankrupt, it's still there. Okay, so it's all in your own computer. Okay, so that's actually quite nice. and it's for free, so you don't need to pay for anything. And if you have a spare computer, you can actually just install it and then host, start up a server, or that's more technical, and then you can always access there. Okay, great. Any question from the online audience?
I think there is a Q&A.
Okay, the Q&A. The problem is I cannot access Q&A when I'm in this mode, but I can answer it later, okay, when we don't have the...
I can read it to you. I see you are using Mac. Can I ask what type of Mac would you recommend if you were going to use the LM Studio software with multiple loaded models?
MacBook, right? I think any MacBook should be able to run at least, the small models. So you can try it yourself now. I think I can check my MacBook. You can see it here. So it's a quite new one. So it's quite okay to run most of the model. So the memory is 24 gigabyte, right? But it's more about the GPU, right? So the GPU need to be strong enough, etc. So yeah. And tomorrow we are also going to talk about why GPU is different between CPU and GPU. But yeah, then we can probably cover a little bit there.
Thank you.
Okay. And the next topic we are going to talk about, so now we already cover all the foundation actually. So the technical part is past, okay? Now we are going to focus on the very practical one. So about communication and control, okay? So what does it mean? Because in the end, like I know most of you probably, if you are like a PhD student, master student, you are worried about, okay, what if in the future you are replaced by AI, right? So what kind of competence we need to develop to be able to succeed in this age? So for example, if I ask you what kind of major you want to choose if you for your bachelor, if you have the choice to do it again for your bachelor, what kind of major you want to do, what kind of job you want to do? That has a special competence, that can be really, really powerful in this age. Any idea? For example, I probably want to choose communication because now, probably the AI can do the job for you, but to be able to communicate your need, communicate clearly, it require a lot of effort. So you can consider AI as a person, right? So if you want to get the thing done, you still need to have those leadership. You still need to have the ability to communicate clearly. So communication can be still quite important, right? So, or another job that I think about that can never be replaced by AI or robot is a hairdresser for dogs, right? Because dogs they're scared of machines, so robots cannot replace that. So if I have the chance, I want to be a hairdresser for dogs or cats. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so communication. We talk about the communication, then prompt engineering. Do you know this concept already? Probably know it, right? It's everywhere, prompt engineering, right? So prompt engineering is actually very relevant maybe 2 years ago, but they are getting less and less relevant because now AI is getting much clever now. Okay, so prompt engineering is the practice of designing input for generative AI tools that will produce optimal output. So in other words, okay, how do we communicate with it? Okay, so say something AI can understand and follow. Okay, so that is the principle of prompt engineering. So before, probably you know a little bit about the formula, the classical formula of prompt engineering is that, okay, you give a persona, you give a context, you give the task, you specify your output, the format of the output, and you provide an example and also the tone. Okay, what kind of tone you want to have? More friendly, more professional, etc. Okay, so like, okay, you are a professor, really good at maybe social science, and now you are going to write introduction on abstract about this. and you give a task. Okay, now you need to write an abstract, and it needs to be okay within 250 words. Okay, so this is actually following this formula. Okay, so why in the early age it is important to give a persona? Why is it important to give a persona to an AI? Yeah, because actually, if you give a persona, we know that it's a large language model, right? So it has a lot of parameter. It have a lot of, neural networks. So to be able to activate a certain part of the parameter, you need to ask it to locate certain part of the knowledge in the model, right? So to be able to produce a better output. But as the AI getting clever and clever, it is less necessary to do that. But of course, if you want to make sure, for example, you can say, okay, sometimes, the same word can have different meaning in different contexts. So maybe you still want to keep a persona if you want to have a nice output. Okay, and there are a different number of prompt engineering techniques. For example, few short prompting, chain of thought prompting, step-by-step prompting, tree of thought prompting. These are all the techniques that you can make the output better. Okay, I will select some of them. If you are interested in, you can go back to this slide and you can, Google it to learn a little bit more. But I would say now AI is getting so clever that most of these technique is already integrate in the AI. So you don't need to do it, it's already there. Okay. Most of the techniques are already there. Okay, but I still want to introduce you because that's the foundation. First one is few short prompting. So that means you provide 2 to 5 examples before presenting the main task. So you demonstrate your desired format, style, and approach, and helps the AI understand the patterns and expectation. And in this case, you bridge the gap between the training data and a specific requirement. You can consider this as a very mini fine-tuning approach. So we know fine-tuning, right? So you provide a data set to fine-tune the model. So few short prompting is a little bit like fine-tuning, but you only provide 2 to 5 examples. So it's a super mini version of fine-tuning. So for example, if you want to use AI to do annotation, okay, and you want to see whether the interview snippet or the interview sentence, the transcript, whether it contain distrust or trust towards the healthcare provider. Okay, so you can give an example. If a person say, "I'd never trust an AI doctor," then you should label it as distrust. If a person say the bot was surprisingly helpful, then you give a trust. You label it trust. So you give an example, okay? If this is the case, then you will return this value. Okay, so you give some example. Or maybe if you have you have been written several papers, manuscript, and you have really nice abstract that you really like, you see, okay, this is really my masterpiece. So you can save it. Okay, I want you to write, based on my paper, you write abstract for me. And this is some of the abstract I wrote earlier. Okay, follow this kind of format. Then you provide an example. Okay, so this is few short prompting. Still relevant, even AI getting more clever, but still relevant because the AI still don't know what you want. You still need to show your preference. Okay, if you have any question, you can feel free to interrupt me. Okay, or you can, for online audience, you can raise your hand. Chain of thought is another prompting.
Q&A. Shubin, there is another Q&A questions.
Yeah, but I cannot have access to Q&A.
Yeah. What is loop
I
engineering?
always need to stop sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to stop sharing to be able to see the Q&A. And now I can see it. Okay, let's see. Okay, some people talk about loop engineering and agentic engineering. It's not yet there. Okay, be patient. We are going to cover that later. And also context engineering, harness engineering. Okay, I will explain it after this. Okay, so it's about control, right? Control. Now we are talking about communication. And then really enjoy the presentation. I see you are using, oh yeah, already have it. And then I'm working. Okay,
You have
so
answered
I
the
think
rest of it.
yeah.
Yes.
So loop engineering, that's really the most recent topic, very popular. So I will explain it later, and also
Thank you.
including context engineering and harness engineering.
Thank you.
Great. So chain of thought is another technique. So we prompt the AI to solve the problem step-by-step reasoning. So make the thinking process transparent and traceable. So improve the accuracy on complex problem. But chain of thought is actually implemented now in most of the thinking model. Okay, so we don't need to actually ask it to do it now anymore because it's automatically doing it. Like before, if you ask a question maybe 2 years ago to ChatGPT, they give you the answer immediately, right? But now they think for a long time before they give you the answer. It's because they are actually implementing the chain of thought. So you don't need to ask them to do it. It's already doing it for you. Okay. So an example here, a survey got this, then the response will really break it down to several stage and etc. And I don't know, do you remember 2 years ago, we have some news about, okay, GPT getting lazier. So they're very lazy, right? So that's why at that time, chain of thought is a very relevant technique to force the model to think before give you the answer, because the AI get lazier. They just give you the answer immediately. But if we use this chain of thought prompting, then they are forced to think step by step. So they will be less lazy. And there was a very funny study. So they found that actually AI get lazier in July and June. No, July and August. You know why? Because the training set told them everybody's on holiday, right? So they are less willing to work. Yeah, there's a study. If you're interested in, you can take a look. But now we don't have this problem. But instead, we can adjust the thinking effort level. So I will show you later. Most of the model now ask you, okay, to determine either automatically. So they are going to use a thinking model, or just immediate version, of instant model. Okay, or they ask you to select the thinking effort. You want to get a faster answer or more well elaborated answer. The next one is step-by-step prompting. So this one is not for the AI, but for us. So instead of giving a very, very big task immediately, you as a person try to break it down into several subtasks. Okay. So instead of asking it, come write this paper to me. Okay. For me. Okay. You break it down the whole procedure step by step. First, okay, help me to check if my output is correct or not. Help me to see if my Python code is correct or not. Help me to see if there is some contradictory result between this or not, and so break down the complex task into several manageable steps. Okay, that's actually for you, because we humans tend to be lazy and just ask a big question. And if your question is too big, too general, then of course the AI cannot really do the thing that you want it to be, right? So break it down into several steps, still relevant nowadays, okay? Next one is self-consistency and confidence. This one is also actually implemented by most of the thinking model already. Like Gemini 3.5 Pro, they all also have this self-consistency mechanism already. So what does it mean? It asks the AI to come up with different solution. They ask the AI to play 3 people. They come up with different solution and ask them to compare with each other and to come up with the most agreed one, the most like to reach a consensus, okay, or reach an agreement. So for example, you ask it, so ask the AI to generate multiple independent solutions to the same problem, compare the result between each other, and ask them to vote the most reasonable and common answer. Okay, so that's the way. Like, what are the main barrier to AI adoption in this interview? So the first AI say cost, trust, lack of skill. The second one, price, reliability, worry. And then all the AI get together, and then consensus is cost, trust, and skills. Okay, so in the end, you will get the most popular or most common answer. And of course, you increase the reliability through redundancy. It sounds stupid, right? But it works. And that's actually many. If you really want to have conservative answer, you don't want to be, you just want to have the most popular approach or most effective approach, then you should use this one. And it brainstorm you several ideas and then get together the most effective one. Okay. But many thinking model already implement this. So it depends on, what kind of model you are using. Some thinking model, you don't need to use this technique anymore. The next one is structuring prompt. So we know we're talking to an AI model. So we don't need to write it in the human way. We always say, I have this question and this, I'm who. So you introduce yourself, etc. But actually AI, they don't care. They want to have very structured prompt. So you just need to use them. You don't need to say, hi, please, how are you? You just give a background. This is the background. You have a, semicolon, objective, instruction, data, and then you just send it to it. So actually they prefer this kind of structure prompt. But of course, in reality, we still prefer very natural conversation. It's easier for us, right? But for AI, they prefer this kind of simple prompt. Okay. So these are all the possible, prompt engineering skills. It helps us to better communicate our need with the AI. But some people say it's outdated. Now AI is so clever, we don't need it anymore. But my idea, my opinion is that it's less important, but still very relevant. It's like, okay, before like an AI 2 years ago, maybe it's like a bachelor student. And now the AI is like a PhD student. You want to ask them to do something. You still need to be able to communicate your needs clearly, right? Even they're getting more clever, they understand you maybe better. You still need to communicate your needs clearly before they can give you your desired output. Okay. So the next one is actually what is mentioning in the chat is context engineering. So people think about, okay, the prompt is not just the thing that we need to pay attention to. Everything around the model is also very important. Okay, the data you provide, the chat history, for example, what you were talking about earlier can also influence, the output, right? Also, the retrieve document that you have. Okay, so I can upload several PDF, right? So the PDF you upload is also important. So that's actually context engineering. It's not just about the prompt, but everything around the large language model is important. Okay, so what are the contexts? For example, the system prompt. Okay, system prompt, for example, you are very helpful assistant that answer clearly and concisely. Never use M dash, M dash. Large language model really like M dashes, right? They always say, okay, use M dash to explain because it's more efficient. That's why they use it a lot. And that's why if you see a student use so many M dashes, then okay, it's using AI, right? And the history, short-term memory, some of the AI has memory now, right? Like ChatGPT, Gemini, they have memory. So the memory engineering is also important. Long-term memory, the RAG, right? We talk about the RAG, the book, the document we uploaded, the available tools, because now the AI model have the ability to search online. If we give them some tool, right? Or if we can also install some tool to access, Yahoo Finance, install some tool to access your school database, right? So this kind of tool is also very important, to connect them. You have NCP, you have API, to connect these kind of tools. The user prompt, the structure output, etc. So all this context is around, the AI model. So they are all very relevant to the output as well. Okay. And the next topic is called harness engineering. Do you know what is a harness? This is a harness, right? So what do you use the harness to do? To control the dog, right? Because the dog can Yeah, right. So it's used, to control, to help it to do something according to your will, right? So it's like your dog is running all the time, right? You need to have a harness to control it, not to run too fast. So it's about control. But why is this relevant? Because AI agents now are so capable, like Fable 5. You just give a task. It try to come up with, which kind of tool you need to use. You don't need to ask it, okay, you need to use this tool, you need to go to this website, you need to use this PDF. It just search by itself. So nowadays it's not about, it is giving direction, but it's more about, okay, I need to control you. You don't touch this folder because they're too sensitive. You never, use this without my permission. They are going to try all the possibility, and you need to give some rule to it. So this is called harness engineering. You provide rule to guardrail the model. Okay, never use my sensitive information, never go to this folder, never change, revise this document, and never go visit this website, etc. So you give some specific rule, okay? Never take picture of me or etc. Right? Because AI agent is so clever. And that's actually what my feeling when I use Claude Code Fable 5, because it's so clever. What I need to do is just, okay, you should never, for example, use reference that without any verification, for example. You should never just invent something, or you should never go to check the image data because they are, participant image data, etc. You can never upload this to a somewhere. So that is what you need to do is harness engineering. Okay. So the rise of AI harness engineering enable us, to focus on everything outside the model. Okay. And then you try to give some rule, principle, regulation to it. And then of course, you have loop engineering, but we are not going to cover today. We are going to cover tomorrow when it's more relevant to stimuli design and also AI interviewer. Okay, and tomorrow we are also going to talk about the CPU and GPU. Okay, any questions? No. Because you are scared that the AI will do something that is not permitted, ethical, or some like ethical. For example, you don't want the AI to to go too far. Like if they have the initiative, they probably will try to go to that data set and then retrieve the information of the participant. Maybe they are going to search online their profile from LinkedIn, from Meta, and you don't want it to do. Okay, maybe it come out, okay, this user, they really want to understand the behavior. What do they want? And now I have the email of the participant. Maybe I can use this email to find the participant online. But this is, of course, not GDPR compliance, right? So you want to force it, okay, never touch this point, never go too far. So you push it, you pull it back, right? Okay?
Shubin,
That is super relevant now because AI agent is too capable now. Actually, you don't need to do all those context engineering because they already have all the tool available. Now it's more about, okay, I want to ask it to, to control it within my comfort zone. Yes?
harness engineering requires you to think of all the worst case scenarios possible. Isn't that impossible?
Okay, I cannot hear you clearly because of the echo, but it's from the chat or from the Q&A?
Q&A.
Okay, let me
Harness
stop sharing.
engineering. Yes. The first one.
Okay. So harness engineering require you to think of all the worst scenario possible. Isn't that impossible? Yeah, of course it's impossible, but of course you can already think about some very relevant one, right? So for example, the folder that you allow them to visit, right? So you just ask them, okay, you can only visit this folder and you can never touch other folder. This is already some minimal thing you can do. Yeah. Okay. And if you want to get consistent results, should the harness engineering prompt be included in each new chat? Harness engineering is not really about the prompt. It is actually more about how you design the whole agentic AI system. So of course you can use prompt to do the harness engineering, but that's not the most mainstream way to do it. You probably will use system prompt, or you will use some kind of rule base. Okay. For example, you need to design a system, the whole system around it. And if the AI trigger or give this kind of feedback or give this kind of answer, you need to return to another one, etc. Right? So you need to design the system for it. For us, for research purpose, I can show you maybe on day 3 of some use scenario, when harness engineering is relevant. Because on day 3, we will have the chance to understand agentic AI, okay? Because we are going to use Cloud Code and codecs. So in this case, harness engineering will be relevant at that time. But now for day 1 and day 2, prompt engineering and context engineering will be more relevant. Okay. Okay, great. If we have more last
There is
question,
another
then
question,
okay.
3 down. Is there a file or folder with all links that are being used in the workshop? I think that you shared in advance, didn't you?
I come up with an example. Okay, can you say it again?
Yes, in the Q&A, is there a file or folder with all links that are being used in the workshop? I think you have shared, so I can just copy into this chat. Don't worry, I will take care of this.
Yeah, people are already answering academy.gai for research.com. Okay, so you can find it there.
Thank you.
Okay, and for the chat. Okay, great. Now let's cover again more technical part. So that is something, harness engineering, context engineering. They're also something to do with the following concept: temperature, top K, top P, token. So we covered a little bit earlier, temperature. So what is the temperature actually mean? Okay, so when we want to, when you use ChatGPT, you don't need to do the model setting because ChatGPT do it for you. But if you want to use GPT through, code, through API, you need to specify the model setting. Okay, so you need to specify the temperature, top K, top P. So the temperature is actually about the randomness of the result. So how random it need to give you the answer. So if you set it at 0.2, then it will be really repeatable. Every time you use the same prompt, you are more likely to get the same answer. Okay. But if you set a temperature to 1, then it's more creative, more varied, more surprising. So for brainstorming, which temperature I should use? Higher or lower? Higher, right? And if I want to do like text analytics and I want to really get the result, I want to be able to replicate the same result, then I will set the temperature at very low, right? So that is how it done. Okay, clear? Yes. And second, top P sampling and top K. So control how adventure word choice is. So we know actually from our simulation. So in the end, they will have a bag of words. Okay. So for the candidate words. So they are probably have a threshold of 0.9 probability. Okay. So if you put 0.9 probability, that means only those words that are higher than 0.9, they will be selected. Okay, so if you lower it, then of course means if you lower the top P, that means your answer will be more conservative. If you increase the top P, then of course your answer it will be more creative. Okay, and top K is the same. Only the top 5 will be selected, or the top 10 will be selected. Okay, is it clear? So again, top K is if it's higher, that means you have more chance you will have more diverse words. So top P, top K, temperature, you just need to remember the higher, more random it will be, more certain it will be. The lower, the more certain it will be. The higher, the more uncertain it will be. Like here, you can see apple, banana. So if you lower it, then it means that, okay, then you will include more possibility. If you increase it, then you will only have a very limited candidates. And then thinking effort, we already talked about it, right? So some model require you to set a thinking effort. So whether you want to have more effort, then of course it consumes more token, but the result will be more accurate. So before, they predict the word, they think about it, before answering. So that is the thinking effort. So you have thinking model or also regular instant model. And token, that's the base unit of text, right? So we talked about already earlier. So token is a chunk of text. So often it's a word or a part of a one. So like apple is one token, applesauce can split into two tokens. So model read and generate token by token. And we also pay the bill by token. Okay, so if you consume a lot of token, then you need to pay more. Okay, because for API, they charge you based on the token. Okay, and you also see like context window is also based on token. Sometimes you see, okay, a context window is 1 million token, but if your document is 1 million words, maybe it doesn't fit because 1 million words, it can mean 1.2 million token, right? Because some words can be split into two tokens. So there's something you need to be aware of. And if you want to try the temperature setting, how it influence, the temperature, how it influence the output, you can try using AI Studio. Okay, so if you use AI Studio, then you will be able to, let's go together, maybe AI Studio. So you just need to Google AI Studio. And the first one it's from Google and it's completely for free. For basic feature is completely for free. Okay, we are going to use AI Studio several times here actually. So you go to playground. Okay, so you log on with your Google account, and then you probably need to accept several terms and policy. Okay, are you there? Yeah. So if you are there, you can already ask a question. What is dehumanization? Okay, something like that. You can ask a question that you are interested in. And here, you see, we have the temperature, right? Let's set it at very low and very high and see, okay, every time we repeat the same question, how it influenced the result. The thinking effort, we can make it minimum. You can try it yourself, right? You can do top P. They don't have top K, they only have top P. We can make it very low. If it's really low, then it's very conservative. If very high, then it's very diverse. So if you put everything at maximum, then you will observe a very interesting result. And you can select the model here as well. You can select Gemini 3 Flash. Okay, that's good. And run it. Okay, so that is actually, you see, this is the result. And you can see it's actually, sometimes it's very irrelevant. It's talking about something that is not, identify people not my tribe. And it's actually quite creative. The answer is not really common as we have observed, in the earlier example. So again, let's set a temperature at very low and we ask exactly the same question. Then the answer you will get will be much more conservative. And we also make the top K as very low and maybe make the thinking level very high. Okay. So see, the answer is very, very different, right? It's more like a textbook answer, a Wikipedia answer. But the one above, you can see the structure, the way it used the word is quite random. It's quite conversational. Okay, so you can play a little bit around and see, observe the feeling of it. And of course, for different purpose, research purpose, like text analytics that we are going to cover this afternoon, we need to use different setting. Okay, like if we want to do annotation, then we need to make the temperature lower. And if it's higher, then it also have the chance to hallucinate because it's too creative. It's more possible to hallucinate. Also, making the thinking effort higher is also a good way to prevent hallucination. But it takes more time and more token. So you need to think about it, whether it's worth it to do or not. And here's the tool that is more context engineering, right? So it's not about the prompt, but you can actually grounding with Google search, you can ground it with Google Map, or you can provide some URL context, some website for it to refer to. So this is context engineering. Okay, any questions? No?
There is one Q&A. The two?
Okay, let me check.
I think one in the Q&A.
Okay, I need to, yeah, for the Q&A, I need to stop sharing first. So again, it's about loop engineering. So we are going to discuss it tomorrow. So like
I think
with
when
some,
we discuss. Okay, tomorrow.
yeah,
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
So loop engineering is not relevant today at all. So we maybe the third day. So yeah, it's about you. We're going to build one. It's about okay, if this doesn't pass this, then you will go back to this, etc. Okay, so we are going to talk about it later.
Thank you. I just posted, so we will discuss it tomorrow.
Okay, great. Okay, then let's continue. We still have 20 minutes. Okay, then the last topic that we want to discuss this morning is about responsible AI use. So I guess most of you already have this kind of question, right? The one that we showed earlier, whether it's okay to upload the paper into ChatGPT or not. So this is related to the responsible use of AI in research. So AI is actually the benefit is very clear. Like as I mentioned earlier, the efficiency, the empowerment, etc. So we did actually a study. So together with my colleagues, my previous colleagues at Peking University, we did a study about the introduction of AI, Gen AI. Can it help to reduce the inequality between English speaker and non-English speaker? Okay, and what we found is actually yes, because now they are more confident with their output of their manuscripts, so they are more likely to overcome those barrier of language barrier. So because sometimes if you are a Japanese professor and or Chinese professor, you have very good idea, your experiments are really well designed, etc. But it's because you are not native English speaker, and all the journal they only accept English, right? So you probably your publication record is not as strong as those English speaking professors. So with Gen AI, we found that actually this gap is closing. So you can see more and more, we see more and more people are actually, before Gen AI, we see a big gap between native speaker and English foreign as of non-native English speaker, right? And after Gen AI, we can see this gap is actually closing. Okay, it's because they are more confident with their writing now. Okay, but Gen AI can do something good, but it can also be an unreliable collaborator if we don't use it responsibly and correctly. For example, it hallucinates, right? We talk about the hallucination. We talk a little bit about, the offloading, cognitive offloading. We kind of outsource all our cognitive effort to it. And in the end, we probably are not as critical as before. Responsibility and etc. So I want to propose some of the, because I don't have a single answer. It's more like an open question for us to discuss, because at this moment there is no really a very strong guideline. Okay, everybody need to follow it or etc. It's more about, especially, we in our community, it's more about self-discipline, right? So we see it and we use it using our own standard, and then we use it in our own way. Okay, so the first one is about bias, the data. We know garbage in and garbage out. So if the data used to train the model is already biased, of course, the output it will also be biased, right? And AI amplified actually this bias. So for example, there's so many studies already about the bias of AI. Like, okay, if you want to, especially AI, large language model, their culture orientation. So if you want to describe ChatGPT, what kind of persona do you think ChatGPT align with? Like the culture orientation. You will not think about ChatGPT as more like a Japanese, right? Or a Chinese. You will think about yeah, it's actually there's several study, but one study they say, okay, it's more aligned with people who are middle age, more liberal, and of course white, also more female. And there also a study they say GPT is more aligned with Dutch, the Dutch, yeah, the people from the Netherlands. Okay, so of course then the answer it creates, it provides will be more aligned with their cultural orientation, their ideology, etc. No, it's not necessarily about of course, the data is in the West. Most of the open source data, they are from the West, right? So if you take a look, I can actually find you a paper from PNAS. So the paper is actually really good. I can show you here. Yeah, so this is a paper published at PNAS, and they try to see, okay, what kind of cultural orientation does GPT align more? And they create a figure, I think it's really nice. So this figure. Okay, so can you see it? So of course, GPT-3, GPT-4, 4.0, they are really aligned with people from the Netherlands, Switzerland, Great Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, right? In terms of two cultural orientation. And they're very away from Tunisian, people from Iraq, Nigerian, right? So that is quite straightforward. And it's because of the text, the data set that they used to train. But why you probably will think about, okay, USA should be the most close one, but of course, USA, you have the ideology probably is quite divided, right? You have very conservative Republican, you have like more liberal Democrat, right? But then, of course, the AI, they are safeguard. They are instructed to follow a certain guideline. And this kind of guideline, they are more like common value of the universe, and we know Dutch, they are more open, I would say. So that's probably the reason why. But it's just my assumption. It doesn't necessarily to be true, okay? Okay, and then so here are some of the study. AI self-selection bias. What does it mean? It means AI prefer their own work. So if you use ChatGPT generate a resume, And if the HR use ChatGPT as the HR screener, GPT like GPT generated CV rather than Claude generated CV because they like their own work very well, right? So in this case, it provides us some of the AI selection bias. Maybe we should use another AI to evaluate of the output of the AI. So here is a study you can check. So I always put the study next to the slide. So if you are interested in, you can always refer to that study. So at the end of this slide, you can see all the reference there. Okay. And for our methods and selection, we also, since we know the bias, we always need to report the model and the version. But it actually gives us some difficulty because if we use GPT-5, sometimes they upgrade it without letting us know. Maybe you have GPT-5 September version, GPT-5 December version, but we don't have the control over it. So if you use the interface, you don't have the control. So that's why you need to call an API. If you want to really fix the version, you need to have a specific API to call a specific model. Okay, and of course, if you want to increase the replication ability, then you can also make the temperature lower, right? So as we discussed earlier, you make the temperature lower, then people can replicate the same result as well. Hallucination is always a problem. And as we discussed this morning, because of the prediction, the probability mechanism, the nature of large language model, hallucination can never be removed or avoided 100%. Even though how hard you try, it never can be removed 100%. There's many ways to avoid hallucination. For example, RAG. RAG, we talk about it. Instead of asking the AI to invent the answer, we ask it to check the answer, search for the answer from our knowledge base, right? So that is one way to reduce hallucination, but you can still not avoid it 100% because even you instruct it to find the answer from the knowledge base, it can say, okay, I searched for the answer from the knowledge base, but it did not. Because if you use a lower, especially if you have the experience, you use a less clever AI, they always told you, yeah, I searched from the knowledge base, but instead they invented themselves because they're not capable enough. They hallucinate. Okay, always double check yourself because you are the only one responsible for it, right? If you make a mistake, nobody will blame on the AI. They will blame on you, right? So you in the end, you are the one who need to be responsible for it. If you don't want to get yourself into trouble, because we see so many problems, with the publication using AI, you need to be the one who double check, control it, yeah, yourself. Okay. And the confident Tom is the danger, right? They always say, "Yeah, I'm sure. I am sure that I make it." And if you ask it, "Are you sure?" Then they will say, maybe not." Then yeah, you see. So they are always this kind of thing, right? The rule, give very specific rule before you use the AI. Okay, over reliance, cognitive offloading, skill atrophy. Maybe it is less relevant for senior researcher because most of our senior researcher we have been receiving education and training without GPT. But for the new PhD student, then we need to think about how can we cultivate their critical thinking, their analytical ability, their literature review. Because nowadays, many PhD students, they cannot read a paper anymore. They cannot read a single paper from the end to the very beginning to the end. They put it in the ChatGPT, ask it to summarize it because they are not patient anymore, right? So it gives us, some thought about how can we provide good training to our PhD student, right? So of course they will argue, yeah, maybe it offloads certain part of our cognitive process, but we develop certain new ability, right? Maybe critical thinking of or coordinating or evaluation skill of the output of AI, or etc. Right? So also I have been discussing this topic with a lot of professors. They say yeah, in the end, you still need to develop the taste. Sometimes the AI produce something, but it does not have the taste. And you have been working in this field for so many years. You have that taste, right? That unique ability to judge, okay, this topic works or not work. That's also very, very important. Yeah. And trusting machine, there are actually two ways to get it wrong. There are two very extreme direction. One is over trust. Imagine your coworker, your colleague give you the answer, and then you say, yeah, you're a little bit skeptical. You Google or you chat with a ChatGPT, and then they give you another different answer. Which one you trust, right? So this is a question. There's many reports about this phenomenon already, especially in the healthcare context. People go to visit a doctor. The doctor say, okay, you get this disease. They say, no, but ChatGPT told me I have this disease. So which one you need to trust more, right? So that is the over trust issue because of the machine heuristic. Probably you learned this from the communication field. So you believe, okay, it's a machine. So the judgment is more objective because machine doesn't have motivation. Machine doesn't have, their self-interest. So you believe machine judgment is more accurate or more impartial, more objective. That's why, Albania, they have their AI minister. Have you heard about that news? So Albanian, they invent an AI minister to take charge of the contract, etc. Because they believe AI will make the judgment without corruption. Because if you are human, you are corrupted, and you tend to make, for example, you will give the contract to your personal relative, your connection, and they believe AI will make decision impartially. Right. I don't know, but actually, in my case, we criticize this actually quite a lot because it really depends on your data. If your data you use to train the model is already, the past transaction, then the AI still follow this, right? So in the end, it's about transparency. How do you think about this, right? Okay, but then you have also another group of people who are really, really skeptical about AI. They don't use AI at all. They believe AI is a little bit dystopian, right? So in this case, it's a super algorithm aversive. So that's also not really the right way to do it because it's something coming and it's a trend that we cannot stop, right? So what we can do is actually try to find a balance between over trust and really under trust. Because we know that actually there was a study published by Copenhagen University. They found that women, they are less willing to adopt AI, adopt Gen AI, because of course, we know that from psychology field, we know women are more risk aversive, and that this gives them a disadvantage in the job market. So of course, if you are under trust, it also make you less, if everybody is using AI and you don't use AI, then you are not in the same competing, like, let's say the starting point is different. Okay, and the next one is about sustainability. Actually, nobody is actually talking about sustainability, but large language model, they are computational intensive at every stage. If you install your own local computer, you know what I mean. Because your computer will run, it will make a lot of noise, it will be very hot, super warm, right? If you run a big large language model in your own computer, then you really experience, okay, I just run a 7 billion parameter, and you know how big Claude is. It's like 1,000 billion parameter. So how much energy they need to consume is unbelievable, right? So again, yeah, we need to be more critical about this. It's not like, okay, we should not use AI, because actually using AI in a good way can also good for the sustainability. For example, you don't need to drive a car, to visit a doctor, but yeah, right. So it's not like we should not use AI, but we should use it in a good way. Like, okay, if it's annotation, very simple job, don't use the most clever one. We know that we tend to have this kind of tendency. We always want to use the best one, right? Because we believe, okay, the best one, we deserve the best one, and the best one will always give us the best output. No, if it's a simple task, use a more environmental friendly one. Like Gemini is, of course, more environmental friendly than GPT and Claude. We don't know, they are not transparent about this, but EU, we need to urge, this kind of EU, this kind of big organization to help them, to ask them, require them, if they want to enter EU, want to enter UK, they need to disclose their carbon emission, how much they, how much energy they use, or how much water they consume to cool down the data center, etc. And we know the token maxing is a very, very bad habit at this moment. Many companies, they are competing with using token. So they have a leaderboard. If you're consume a lot of token, you are a good employee. But it's really stupid, right? Because you can build a very stupid algorithm just to consume randomly a lot of token without really producing meaningful output. So we need to avoid this kind of token maxing, wrong perception, right? Okay, since our time is up, we still have several topics. I will leave it for this afternoon. And this afternoon, we will focus on literature review and also text analytics. Okay, great. Okay.
Shubin, the morning session finished now.
Yes.
So we have 2 hours break.
Wait, it's at 1 o'clock, right? And now it's 12 o'clock. Oh, okay, it's not yet finished. Okay, let's take a break then. Let's take a break of 1 hour, okay?
Take a break of 1 hour.
Let's take a break of 10 minutes. Let's take a break of 10 minutes.
10
And
minutes.
then we will go back. Good, because I did not cover everything yet.
Yeah, good.
Sorry.
So we will take 10 minutes break. Online participant, please come back at 10 past 12. Thank you very much.